Hey everyone, welcome back to RJK English. As we've talked about before, this is RJK English on Facebook. Come here and see some of my other posts and we can talk more. All right, let's get started. So we're going over Creation by Gore Vidal. And we've started with the first three paragraphs. So we know that there is a narrator. It's in first person, meaning he is telling it about himself. First person narration. Um, Third person would be he did this, she did this, without that first person. But we're in first person. He has talked about how he works for Darius the Great, but he's actually in Greece. And we see that his nephew, Democritus, has really taken on the idea of being Greek and is at the time of Plato and others during Athenian democracy, which we think of as the classical time in Greece. Okay, so this is when the Persian Empire would not be as powerful. Okay, we're going to keep going. I'm going to try to read more and then talk about it instead of breaking it up. Okay. When the painful reading ended, our historian, this is Herodotus, has a thin, monotonous voice and made even less charming by a harsh Dorian accent. My 18-year-old nephew, Democritus, wanted to know if I would like to stay behind and speak to the traducer, or the ruiner, or the slanderer of Persia. You should, he said, because everyone is staring at you. They know you must be very angry. Why would he be angry? Because Herodotus is giving history from the Greek point of view of the war with Persia, and our narrator is a Persian. Democritus is studying philosophy here at Athens. This means that he delights in quarrels. Write that down, Democritus. After all, it is at your request that I am dictating this account of how and why the Greek wars began. Notice he calls them the Greek wars, not the Persian wars. Kind of like for the US, we would say, oh, the war in Iraq. And maybe Iraq would say the war of US aggression and occupation. I shall spare no one, including you. Where was I? Oh, the Odeon. We looked at the Odeon last time. It's an amphitheater. I smiled the poignant smile of the blind, as some unobservant poet characterized the expression of those of us who cannot see. The poignant smile of the blind. Not that I ever paid much attention to blind men when I could see. On the other hand, I never expected to live long enough to be old, much less to go blind, as I did 3 years ago when the white clouds that had been settling upon the retinas of my eye became suddenly opaque. The last thing that I ever saw was my own blurred face in a polished silver mirror. This was at Susa, in the great king's palace. At first I thought that the room was filling up with smoke, but it was summertime and there was no fire. For an instant I saw myself in the mirror, then I saw myself no longer, nothing else ever again. I saw myself no longer, saw nothing else ever again. In Egypt, the doctors perform an operation that is supposed to send the clouds scurrying. But I am too old to go to Egypt. Besides, I have seen quite enough. Have I not looked upon the holy fire, which is the face of Ahura Mazda, the wise Lord? I have also seen Persia and India and farthest Cathay. No other man alive has traveled in as many lands as I. I am digressing. This is a habit of old men. My grandfather in his 75th year used to talk for hours without ever linking one subject to another. He was absolutely incoherent. But then he was Zoroaster, the prophet of truth. Who is Zoroaster? Zarathustra. And just as the one God that he served is obliged to entertain, Simultaneously, every aspect of all creation, so did his prophet Zoroaster. The result was inspiring if you could ever make sense of what he was saying. Okay, we're going to stop there for now. Let's go back. Here's some vocabulary. A poignant smile of the blind. I smiled a poignant smile of the blind. Notice I don't say poignant, I say poignant. If we were to do Spanish, it would be an N with a tilde above it. Poignant. Yeah. Like sueño. Poignant smile of the blind. What does poignant mean? I think of it as very well said. Let's see what poignant means. Evoking a keen sense of sadness or regret. Okay, so a regretful, poignant smile, a keen sense, meaning a very stark sense of sadness. A poignant smile of the blind. As some unobservant poet characterized the expression of those who cannot see. So, see how he turns everything around. Why does he do this? He's very, very educated. That's why. He doesn't really like what other people say because he feels like it's not complete enough. He also probably thinks very highly of himself, but he is very smart. He's very intelligent, very educated. I smiled the poignant smile of the blind as some unobservant poet characterized the expression of those who cannot see. Characterized means to call something, like if I characterize you as funny, I'm saying you're a funny person. He's saying the poet is unobservant. Usually would say a poet is observant. He observes things and tells it in a very nice way. But he's saying the poet is unobservant. The poet's looking at a blind person and thinking they have a sad look. And the blind person just looks this way because they can't see. See how he turns that around. Not that I ever paid much attention to blind men when I could see. On the other hand, I never expected to live long enough to be old, much less to go blind. So this could be that he didn't expect to live long enough to be old because when you're young, you don't expect to get old. It could also be because he grew up during wars and expected that he'd die, or maybe it was a tenuous situation working under a king, and he thought maybe the king would kill him. We don't know. But 3 years ago, he went blind. How does he describe it? White clouds that had been settling on the retinas of my eyes became opaque. What are the retinas? The retinas are the actual seeing part of the eye. The retina, I think, is the retina. I think the retina is the seeing part in the back of the eye that actually sees. And it felt like there were clouds there. He thought there, as we see, he thinks there was smoke because he's seeing clouds. Then he realized it's actually his eyes, and at some point they became completely opaque. What is opaque? A glass of water, you can see through it. It's translucent or transparent. Trans meaning go through. Opaque is like milk. You can't see through it. The last thing he ever saw, so now notice he uses white clouds. Okay. The last thing he ever saw was his own blurred face in the polished silver mirror. He saw himself in the mirror and then saw nothing else after that. That was the last thing he saw. Because at first I thought the room was filling up with smoke because the clouds were getting denser. And then he couldn't see anything. There was it was summertime, there was no fire. What does he say? This was at Susa in the great king's palace. Is that Greece? No, he went blind in Persia. We still don't know how he ended up in Greece or why his nephew would be there. But we have a sense that a war happened and the Greeks are telling the history of the war, so the Greeks must have won. So he was at the great king's palace. In Egypt, in Egypt, The doctors perform an operation that is supposed to send the clouds scurrying. Scurrying is like when you turn on the light and there's mice on the floor and they scatter and they go, that's scurrying. And they quickly are running. Or a cat, you walk into the room, they get scared and they scurry away. That's scurrying. What are these clouds that are scurrying? It's a metaphor, I think. The clouds, meaning the clouds in front of his eyes, right? He said that his eyes were cloudy. Now he's saying, calling them actual clouds, to send the clouds scurrying that he would be able to see again. See how he's calling upon that again? That's poetic language. But I am too old to go to Egypt. Besides, I have seen quite enough. Why would you not want sight? Maybe he's seen enough in his life. He's sad. Maybe he doesn't want to see the world because his old world crumbled. Right? Have I not? My friends who live in Kashmir, their constant fear is that things will majorly change there and they won't have a homeland. Imagine how they'd feel if they had to leave. They almost wouldn't want vision because they wouldn't want to see the world as it is because they lost something that was so beautiful, right? Have I not looked upon the holy fire, which is the face of Ahura Mazda, the wise Lord? One moment. Hasn't he done that? What is he talking about? The original monotheism is Zoroastrianism, or Zarathustra, I think, as maybe they say it in Persia, but that's how Nietzsche said it. Ahura Mazda is God, and Angramanyu is kind of like the devil. In a way, it's a dualistic view that there's God and there's the devil, and they're fighting each other. And that imagery affected Judaism, which affected Christianity, which came up with this idea of God and the devil constantly fighting. So he saw the holy fire. Well, often Zoroastrians are called fire worshippers because they have these fires that never die, and they pray to the fire, which is because Ahura Mazda is light, right? I don't know exactly how it works with Zoroastrianism, but that is that's where that comes from. So he says, I have also seen Persia and India and the farthest Cathay. So he's saying he saw such beautiful things. What does he have to see anymore? He's already seen it all. He's seen it all. There's nothing more to see. Cathay is what we call China. Okay. No other man alive has traveled in as many lands as I. This could be true, but he also thinks highly of himself. But it could be that that's true at this point. And he's pointing to Herodotus, who made this history, vast history. Right here, the landmark Herodotus. So Herodotus wrote about everything from Greece to, I think, in Italy as well, all the way to India. So he could be pointing out that he also went to China, or he could be saying Herodotus really didn't go there because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So he says, I am digressing. What is digressing? Let's actually look it up. I use it all the time. I think of it as to go backwards, to digress. Digression, a temporary departure from the subject. So I could be talking about this and then I get on to Zoroastrianism and I start talking about it. I'm digressing. I'm parting from the topic for a while. So it's like we're on a path and then I take a path off of that and then I come back. That's called digression. This is a habit of old men. My grandfather is in his 75th year. He used to talk for hours without ever linking one subject to the other. He just talked. Now, he was absolutely incoherent. Now, who was his grandfather? His grandfather was Zoroaster himself. So he is the grandchild of Zoroaster. Why does he think so highly of himself? He's the grandson of one of the greatest religious leaders ever, Zoroaster, right? It's like if someone was the grandson of Rama, or the grandson of Jesus, or the grandson of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or something, you know. So, but then he was Zoroaster, the prophet of truth. So, uh, through him, Gore Vidal is commenting on Zoroastrianism, and probably commenting on the Avesta, which is the Zoroastrian Bible, I guess, the Zoroastrian scripture, that in a way it's rambling and doesn't seem to have a plot line. It's just a lot of words, you know. So he's commenting on this, for right or wrong, I don't know. So then he was Zoroaster, the prophet of truth. And just as the one God, original monotheism, just as the one God that he served is obliged to entertain simultaneously every aspect of all creation. So he's one God, so he oversees everything in creation, right? And that to entertain every aspect means to let every aspect come to you, to let it be, and to experience it. So did his prophet Zoroaster. So just as God had to look at everything, so did Zoroaster. And that's why he talked on, because he was talking about everything. The result was inspiring if you could ever make sense of what he was saying. So again, Gore Vidal is commenting on Zoroastrianism through this. Okay, so let's talk about a little more about pronunciation. Okay, I know that I came across it. I smiled, poignant smile. Some blind men. Okay, look at how I actually say some of these things. I smiled the poignant smile. Do you notice I didn't say the D? I smiled the poignant smile. In English, we have connected speech. Probably we got this from French, because French had a huge impact on English. Smiled the poignant smile. Listen to how I say it. Smiled. Let's say there was a word smiled, S-M-I-L-T. I'm going to blow this up. Let's say there was a word smiled with a T on the end. I'm going to say both. Smiled, 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 smiled. Do you notice I'm not saying smiled and smiled? I'm using the L, and if my voice keeps going, you know it's the D. If my voice stops, you know it's the T. That's how American English speakers talk. I smiled, notice, because a D is a vocalized T. Listen, I'm going to do this for when my vocal cords are going. Duh, duh, tuh, tuh. My vocal cords only go after the T. They're the same thing with my tongue. And if you try to make a D for long, you can't, because your mouth will fill with air, because air is going through your vocal cords. Listen. See, I'm making the D, my mouth is blowing up. So the way we do this is not by saying smiled the poignant smile. We smiled, and by letting my voice go a little bit longer after the L, you know it's the ED. By cutting it off quickly, you know it's the T, because a T is an unvoiced. Smiled, smiled. So smiled, that's the past tense. Smile, smile. Okay, that's the first part. I smiled the poignant smile of the blind. As some observant poet, notice I don't say the T at the end. Observant, and I cut my voice. Some observant poet, observant poet, observant poet. I don't actually say the T. Okay, so that tells you a little bit about how we say things in English. The last thing I'm going to show you is what's called connected speech or linked speech. Listen to how I say this. I smiled the poignant smile of the blind. Notice how I didn't really have a stop there, because I say I smiled the D goes right into the TH. Smiled the poignant. After that T, I go right into the S. Poignant smile. And right after the L, I go into the of. Smile of the blind. I'm connecting all of those together by using the consonants at the end to go on to the vowel into the next into the next word. I smiled the poignant smile of the blind. I smiled the poignant smile of the blind. That's why Americans and English speakers can talk so fast. They're linking them together. Okay, just gives you a little bit of insight into this while we're going through the book. I hope this is helpful to you. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'm sorry you weren't able to see me that whole time. I apologize. That might not have been very helpful. Okay, I'm going to do that again and I'll cut it. Okay, let's look at this part. I smiled the poignant smile of the blind. Talking about how we say things. Notice I don't say the D in smiled. I'm going to blow this up. I smiled the poignant smile. I don't say the D here or the T here. Actually, what I do, if it is a D at the end of this word, I let my voice go a little bit more while it's closed. Watch. Smiled. Smiled. Notice my voice is still going. Smiled. Smiled. But when I say poignant, I don't say poignant. Listen to the end of this. Poignant. 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 By cutting my voice, I indicate the T at the end. This might be why it's hard for you to understand Americans or really English speakers in general, because we tend to do this, especially in the US, especially with my accent. So smiled the poignant smile of the blind. I don't say the D at the end of smiled. I don't say the T at the end of poignant. I don't say the D at the end of blind. I smiled the poignant smile of the blind. I let my voice go at the end of that. Why? A D and a T are the same thing. Same thing with my tongue and mouth, but different if I use my vocal cords. Okay? Smiled, poignant, blind, blank. That's how we indicate the T versus the D. It's kind of hard. Also notice in this sentence, I'm going to show you how we connect it together. Notice I'm not stopping between words. I'm not saying, I smiled the poignant smile of the blind. I don't talk like that. I smiled the poignant smile of the blind. How do I say it that quickly? Because I'm connecting the words together using the consonants and the vowels that connect the words. Watch. I smiled. I use this like I-Y-S. I smile. I smile. Like it's one word. I smile the, almost like I smile the. Because the D stops here, I just move it into the the. I smile the point. The catapults me into the T, E to the P. The poignant. The poignant smile. The poignant smile. All connected together. I smile the poignant smile of the blind. Almost like it's all one word. I smile the poignant smile of the blind. I smile the poignant smile of the blind. That's how English really works. Probably because of French influence on English when English became Middle English. So I hope that's all helpful. I will see you next time. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon. Tell someone else about this. Every time we're going to read through this book and learn about history, about literature, and I'll throw in some English pronunciation and other things to help you along as well. See you next time.